The Passing Show, live with Hal Gill, your host. In this case, we're in Williamsburg, Virginia, coming up on the backside of the building that used to be in the research department of Colonial Williamsburg. When my father was first started working here in December of 1961 by a buckeye tree. It's got some fruit, thorny stuff. This tree was growing when I was a kid, too. I used to hang out under it. Hard to believe that was full. More than 50, more like, I don't know, 52, 53 years ago. I was 62 now, so when I was 7 or 8, I used to hang out there waiting for Dad to get done with his work here in the old doctor's office at our home of Eastern State. The Travis house was moved onto these foundations when I was a little tyke. I remember when they picked it up and set it down. My father had his office first upstairs and then downstairs, this end of the building. The only one with charred rafters is this end of the building. And he used to have some paranormal experiences there from time to time. There's the front of the doctor's home that was, I forget what they call it, the Barrett house, maybe? So I've been home of a doctor who took care of Eastern State. Yeah, Dr. Barrett's house, exactly. And I don't know what's in there now, but I constructed a museum for archaeology underway, I think, still. Hopefully it opens soon. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then the public hospital with the DeWitt Wallace Decorative Arts Gallery behind it. This is the parking lot. And it looks like kind of cut off from being able to go the way I was planning on going. But they've recently moved a building onto this side over here from up Prince George Street, I guess. And they identified it as being the Bray School. They've restored it to how they believe its 18th century appearance would have been, but it's not on the original site. The Bray School was for African American children. So they're going to be talking about the education of the enslaved population as well as free blacks, I presume. And yeah, that should be interesting. I'm going to do a little walking. I've got about, let's see, it's close to 9 o'clock. I've got about 2.5 hours to take in the sights before needing to go get my mother from her senior living facility and take her out to 2nd Street for lunch. That's the aim, anyway. Oh, yeah, the Archaeological Museum is really coming along there. Let's see down that way. If you're just joining us, this is The Passing Show, Harrowings. I know we've got a few people already here. Ben A. Wajdi, Melanie Gow, the bathroom guy who's saying good morning, everyone. Peace and meta. Love and kindness. So we're on NASA Street at the moment. Walking along Francis, that is. And I think I'll just turn up NASA. Some pretty gardens up here. We'll do Duke of Gloucester Street, the main street to Colonial Williamsburg. The whole town basically was bought by J.D. Rockefeller Jr. in the 1920s, 30s, and restored to its 18th century appearance, or as close as they could get to it. There was some liberties taken. So you have a capital that never coexisted with the courthouse historically. It's coming up on its first century of existing as a museum, living history. And it's had a lot of changes over the years. Its own history is interesting in itself. And I've been a part of it since I was born here in 1963, to the son of a research assistant, associate um, and later historian, and then editor of the Colonial Williamsburg Journal. He was consulting editor for many years before that publication came to an end. This is a little shop that used to be home of my friend Tom Hay and his wife Elizabeth, whose father was my master at Foundry, Sven Danberg, till I left his employ and went over to the gunsmith shop. And sometimes people just don't get along well. Nice potted flowers out, and you see some of the blooming gardens here behind the Talo house, Tolliver house, or there's Tolliver, right? Get my names right. Yeah, this is gorgeous, huh? Nice morning for walking. See a little bit of fruit trees growing down below. I expect this captures pretty well what the colonial vibe was, minus the air conditioner up in the window there. Most of these houses are rented out to employees, sort of a lottery basis they used to use to figure out who got to live in them. I tried for ones that didn't get it way back. Probably just as well. Here we've got the carpenters. Signage has changed a little bit over the years. A friend of mine lives in that little kitchen back there. Haven't visited in a while. It was just here, bought Hartwell Perry Ordinary. They planted it in Spanish brown. It's also a private residence at the moment. Church services going on at Bruton Parish. Oldest continually operating Episcopal church in America. So, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe all frequented that church in their time. Looks like the choir is assembled outside. Hear crow calling. This is a little archaeology work going on here, it looks like. They usually had the garden out there in that space. Colonial gardeners. Looks like the foundry's windows and doors are open. Though they won't open till 10 o'clock to the public. Guess somebody's in the shop already. That's across the way on Palace Green, behind the James Getty house. The Getty Foundry, where I spent about 4 years as an apprentice, as I mentioned earlier. Under Sven Danberg, the first master of the shop. He was succeeded by my cousin George Hassel, known as Doc. And Doc's passed away now in 2016, I believe. I saw him in October 2014, hung out with him over at what was in a bookstore uh, for a couple hours with his wife, Margaret Malone. A lot of history amongst us. So we're going to go up alongside the Bruton Parish Church, look across at the foundry. Long-term plan was to come back and work in the foundry in my retirement, but I don't think that's going to happen. Largely because my wife is still working and she's got no interest in moving here, I don't believe. We're pretty comfortable in Washington, D.C. Got a nice piece of real estate there. It's what we have left after selling her place finally. About this time last year, we were going through that process. Things shook up a bit. And on it goes. Guess I should walk down by the wheelwright's shop, I think. Reminisce. I was trying to put on the miles. That's the best I can. There's the St. George Tucker House down that way. I wanted to go into some of the exhibition buildings. Probably could bluff my way in, but I don't have my card. I don't know what I did with it. That happens. Some bugs out here. Just flew in my ear. Be careful of that. A little tight there under the castagna trees. Or catalba trees, sorry. Catalba. Yeah. Long, bean-like seed pods. So I go down here. I'm going to double back up through the garden. It's the outbuildings of the Wythe House, George Wythe. Sign of the Declaration of Independence. Law professor. Taught, among others, Thomas Jefferson. You have Conradine House and kitchen. Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? To live in Williamsburg again. But I don't. I don't plan to at this point. A small plane going up out of the Williamsburg airport. It's a very small airstrip there where a lot of my friends learned to fly. Mike Yankovic flew off of the Midway during the Gulf War I. My friend David Ballstein learned to fly there as well. Same day I had a car accident. Mike had a plane accident, clipped a wing off of one of his light planes hitting a wire. Lucky he didn't pancake into the swamp. He's gone on to marry the sister of Bruce Hornsby. Yeah, there's the Alcana Dean shop. Used by coachmaker Dean, 1772 to 1775. It is reconstructed. Used to have the blacksmiths in there when I was a kid. Came here with my father, and they made me a little horseshoe with Hal on it. Yeah, those were a big seller back then. Probably churned out a lot of revenue. The blacksmith John Allgood had been working at the shipyard, I think, before he took his trade here. And it's one of the characters of Colonial Williamsburg. If you get the Hammerman of Williamsburg from the Archive series, John's in that with his apprentice or journeyman, Dave Burcham. Dave and I and some other guys, my father included, were part of the Colonial lawn bowling team. And here's the little garden I was going to walk through. There's a photograph from 1962, or maybe probably 1962, yeah, when my mother was expecting me walking in this garden. First evidence of my existence was taken here. Tiger swallowtail here to take in on the passing show. A little spirit it is. Off it goes, maybe disturbed by my filming it. As we walk on, some sort of yellow flower blooming there. I don't know what it is. But it is nice to come here and reminisce about the fact that my parents living in Ludwell apartments then, anticipating my arrival. My sister was all of 2. And I arrived before she turned 3. Now she's the Chief Development Officer at Jamestown Yorktown Foundation, taking care of helping fundraise for that institution. Been doing that for a little while now, since the time my father got cancer in 2022. He bought her a little house down near Jamestown. That was nice of him. And she sold that in her house up in Maryland and bought a Very nice place across from the college on Indian Springs Road, where she lives with her husband and Mac, her dog, and 2 cats. Goose and another one. I forgot the other one's name. I never met it. It hid when I visited. We had Thanksgiving there with my dad, his last Thanksgiving. Then we drove around and he told us stories about living on Chandler Court near old Greg Swim, whose swim library is named after at the college. Dr. Morton, all the different professors who were about during the late 50s. My father completed his master's degree. He was living on Chandler's Court. And he was engaged to be married to my mom, which he did right after he earned his master's. June 27th, 1959 is when their marriage was. June 27th, 1960, they brought my sister home from the hospital. So that's a little of my personal history, recorded for posterity on Harrowings Live, a passing show. We're coming up on the Robert Carter house. He had a lot of kids, as I recall, and this is a fairly small house for such a big family. It has this beautiful walkway between it and the Mackenzie Apothecary, which is what it's called now. Little kitchen building out back. And there it is, Robert Carter House, remodeled 1760. Townhouse of Councilor Carter restored. So one of our many original buildings. Governor's Palace and its outbuildings are not original. The outbuildings survived the Governor's Palace itself, which burned in 1780. It's being used as a hospital. And 1781, maybe, right around the time of the Battle of Yorktown, caught fire and fell into its cellar. The cellar had not been disturbed, but we disturbed it when we put in a new HVAC system to take care of this, the Brush Everard, and the With House down the way. The system was installed down underneath the cellar floor. The cellar stones were pulled up, documented, conserved. They had mason's marks on them, which got preserved as well. And I was part of the team that did that with Steve Ray and Albert Skitans made our fume hoods so we could work right down in the wine cellar. They were sort of conformal with the wine cellar roof. And that was a good project. Worked on the leather wallpaper that used to hang in the upstairs. I don't know if it's still there. And yeah, I had a lot of time in the Governor's Palace in different roles over different time periods. Let's see, should we go down this side of Palace Green? I think so. More scenic. Be passing the Brush Everard house. Thomas Everard was a mayor of Williamsburg. John Brush, who had it earlier, was a gunsmith. And there is a surviving pistol in a collection of his hand. I believe he made it in London before coming to Williamsburg. We'll also be passing soon the site of the First Theater in colonial times. And occasionally they put on plays there, on the grounds anyway. Don't know if they're doing that still. They've got another little stage down near the Charlton Coffee House now. You hear the sheep in the distance. There we go. They're not mentioning Brush much. Oh, yeah, they do. It was built in 1718 by John Brush of Gunsmith and Armor and first keeper of the Powder magazine. We'll see that in a bit. Everard purchased the property about 1755 and enlarged and embellished the house to reflect his status as mayor of Williamsburg, clerk of the York County Court, or clerk of the Court of the York County, and clerk to the Secretary of the Colony of Virginia during his 25-year ownership of the site. 1755, 1780. 1780 is when the capital moved from here to Richmond, and therefore Governor's Palace used as a hospital, as I mentioned, rather than the executive residence. because the capital had moved. Site of the first theater. Here we go. William Livingston. There we go. A merchant of New Kent County built the first theater in English America on this site in 1716. For 3 decades, companies entertained audiences at the Playhouse. The latest successes from the London stage. 1745, it was converted into a municipal hall. The building was raised in 1770 after the construction of the courthouse on Market Square. Makes sense. They're going to have what goes up on the Playhouse stage. So they are using it. That's wonderful. That's trash bin. And that's the Livingston Kitchen. My friend Jack Underwood lived there as a teenager. When he'd be marching past here in the guard detail, he'd be playing Pink Floyd out of his window very loudly, including several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grouping with a pict. I probably turned them on to that. I don't know. If I maybe would have all drifted into it if it wasn't for me. Programming as I did in the senior corps locker room with a 8-track player I had. I played a lot of Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, yes. Jethro Tull, of course. I have a fife and a drum to play. That was us. We had fifes and drums. We were large then. Our corps grew up to probably over 100 players during the bicentennial, 1976. So there's the back of the foundry. I don't think I can just cruise in there. Really, I probably could actually just walk through the garden, pretend I'm minding my own business. Why not? I can only be chased away. There's a huge big tree here. We used to get a lot of figs off that tree in the season. Not a lot of ripe ones, doesn't look like right now. I'm sure they're getting picked over regularly by the staff. It's a mockingbird. Another male and a female. And a squirrel. Yeah, get a good look into the foundry, I guess. Sneak around. Are not yet open. See a ruler for the sand on the wall. Sand bin on the end. Made molds of sand, to cast brass, bronze, and silver. Display is kind of spotty. No, there's 2 gentlemen in there right now. But I can't tell. The lob must be off. I'm going to go over to the visitor center a little later. Check out what's going on. I'm really surprised at how bad the display is. It's like no finished objects on it. We used to have these beautiful candlesticks and other objects around for visitors to feast their eyes upon, handle, talk about. But not so much now. But, it is what it is. I don't know if George is still running that place as the supervisor overall. But Mike Knopfsker was kept from being master of the shop for some reason. Maybe he's become master now, I don't know. Took a while after Doc retired. At the age of 65, I guess. Trying to figure out what year that would have been, don't know. Doc started in 1968, about the same time the shop opened, as an apprentice to Dan, and was to be the journeyman. Saw a lot of other workers come and go, but saw his career there. A lifer, as we call many of the craftsmen. It's the Compton oak. It's the largest Compton oak in the world. Younger than I thought. I thought it was from the time of the 18th century. Turns out it's not. It's from the 1930s. It was transplanted from down in Norfolk area at like 36. It's been growing there ever since. Huge tree. Seems to be in pretty good health still. Coming up on its 100th year. There's the Powder magazine, recently redone. Probably not open to the public yet, but they're reinstalling its exhibits. It's a guardhouse with a shed built on the side by the carpenters for housing our fire engines. This was reproduced in a major project, and they reproduced it again, I think, after that one probably wore out. But things don't last forever. Stocks and Pillory used to be down by the jail when I was a kid, but they moved it up here to the courthouse to be more authentic. Looks like its parts have been replaced to some extent. There's iron parts, probably date from my childhood. All I was hearing drums, and what I'm hearing is some guy rolling a cart with some beverage in it, I expect. Time we got now? 9:31. I've got about an hour and a half before I need to be with Mom, so I probably can make this cruise down. Um, let's do this instead. Let's cut across Market Square. Take a look at the Peyton Randolph house. The library from the Randolph family, Peyton Randolph in particular, came to Thomas Jefferson and formed the nucleus of what became the Library of Congress. So you're just a couple of jumps from Peyton Randolph House to Jefferson's Monticello to the Library of Congress. I think it was burned in the War of 1812 by the British. My God, the fence on this place really needs repair. Costs money to keep the place up. I can give something to him on the governor's circle, supposedly. That's one reason I'm going to probably head back to the car within the hour, zoom over to the visitor center, see if I can get cash I can use to get in and out of buildings. I don't know if they'll do that for me or not. Send me a card and I lost it. That's the way it goes. Huh. Yeah, there it is. I mentioned the Taylor house earlier, misassigning it to the Tolliver house. That's the Taylor house up there. The Taylor office with its OG roof. Our visitors, aides, or tradespeople. Good morning. And on top of that, we've got carriage coming up the pike. Carriage rides ever popular. Gas. A nice walk. If I remember right, the Taylor House was the home of Trix Rumford, who was one of the vice presidents of the foundation back in the day. Hope my house pick it off before you pay for the rent. I don't think you really should be driving on this road at this point. So I'm probably an employee. Right now, we're coming up on the Hay Shop, Anthony Hay, cabinet maker. Took care of this place. For a while, we had the musical instrument maker in the little section over the stream. It was probably a covered saw pit, way the sawdust. But illustration didn't see it that way. So it might be. He might. Black Eyed Susan's blooming. Sound of the little stream there. It's one of my wife's favorite spots in the entire historic area. Harpsichord Corners back there. Ashley makes Bennett harpsichords from scratch at the shop. I think I'll loop it. It's so scenic, so historic as well. I actually know furniture that was made here. I have some examples about Benjamin Bucktrout was a cabinet maker here as well. And, of course, Edmund Dickinson, who lost his life at the Battle of Monmouth back in 1778. My parents provided a portrait and the funds to buy a portrait of this fella, Edmund Dickinson, the maker. It's a captain in back some of the chairs. He was a captain in the Continental Army. My friend a squirrel there, moving out of my range. Bridge, back when we were engaged, I was taking her around all the sites. She really loved it. And I'll bring her back sometime. Got a small swallowtail butterfly there. Shadow line. Beautiful. Girlfriend. Hopping away. Bye. And he scooted underneath the building. I'm beginning to get hot. There used to be some huge trees along here. Still are some. But the bigger ones have fallen down or been cut down. I used to hang out here, tin whistling for the crowds waiting in line. 1977 to 81. So I do that. Part of the entertainment. Looking up at the back of the Ludwell Paradise House there. It's the first house bought. And then straight down the Williamsburg End. Very fancy place. I think this would be a good way to go. Might make a looping motion again. But one day we've got a little bit of shade from the buildings. Again, another garden in the back. Squash going, maybe? Oh, yeah. Definitely squash or pumpkin and squash like some gourd. That's going to be the regular summer squash. A little overgrown. Gardening is neglected to some degree. I think they might have even outsourced it. I'm not positive. Used to have land crew that was employed by the foundation, but they've outsourced a lot. This is a sign of the rhinoceros. I expect to see apothecary-related stuff in the window. And the private residence now was, when I was a kid too, I attended a Christmas party there one time that was being held. Forgotten who lived there, but staff of the collections department, if I recall correctly. Now collections and conservation, they merged during my tenure. It's one of the reasons I left Colonial Williamsburg, besides having an opportunity to go back to graduate school, was that, they made an adjustment to the salaried employees and extended it to the hourly employees. The impact of that was to cut our pay by cutting our hours. I thought that and won, and it cost me a bit, though. I had to go over the head of my boss, his boss, to the ombudsman, and then to the president of the foundation who made it right. It wasn't just me, it was like three other conservation technicians who were impacted by that. They got an adjustment up to be even with their previous earnings, and that satisfied me. It was like a very small percentage, but it made a big difference when you're only getting like a maximum 3% a year. An increase would have taken like 3 years to get back to the earning power I had before that adjustment was made. And it wasn't being made for fiscal reasons. It was being made just accidentally out of lack of consideration for the least paid amongst us who took care of the antiques in the field. That was our job as conservation technicians. We'd come out here at 6 a.m., go through the buildings, in my case, the east end of town. My territory stopped right here. And then we'd do our reports and then get to the labs for the afternoons. Work until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I think 3 o'clock, was quitting time for us because we started at 6. And it was a good life. I personally covered the labs during the lunch hour. And I also covered the entire town on weekends when they did a dusting of the streets and sand, which caused a whole lot of trouble with dust. So yellow-fruited holly. It's nice. They've labeled some of the trees. Many of them have been growing here since the restoration, at least. This one's a southern red oak. I think that's really lovely that the Arboretum has labeled the trees. Liberty Lounge is available to military guests and their families. The millinery shop is where my first wife worked, and she did a very ornate gown during her tenure there. Acquired some baleen from Alaska. She had been head of shop at the University of Alaska's theater department before coming to us. Talented seamstress. She went to back behind the scenes to the Costume Design Center before leaving that to get her certification to teach art. Put her through school for that. She could concentrate on her studies. And I worked on my translations and went back to school for my degree in German in 1994, about the time that she decided that she would do something else with her little garden there. And she has done something else with her life. Been out of mine since 94. I think I've done all right. I've upgraded to platinum, I like to say. Crows are having a party in the tree over there. Yeah, the Shields Tavern. That's another one that opened later. This place has a human skeleton in the back. Mortar and pestle there is probably made by Doc Castle. But the human skeleton was acquired by my mother, but it still hangs in the back. Can't see that it does. She named it Hugo. And let's go back this way. We'll come back this way later. It was like the first thing that she was asked to acquire for the collection when she started at the Department of Collections in 1972. Let me see. Probably not. But that's an interesting legacy for me to know that what we did when we did it, we lost a tree here. Pity. This is a little shop. We kept our emergency supplies in here. Probably not good to have. Ooh, it's got a wasp nest. Yeah. This rosemary plant's been growing since I was a child. Seems tremendous. Survives the winters. And nice smell to it. Good morning. How you doing? So we keep on. It's this tree. This one, also a Compton oak, like the one down by the courthouse. Not as big, but that was uh, sprawling. This one also a Compton oak. Yeah, sure enough. Magnolia across the way. Blooms are done. And seed pods are out. Now they're close to the Fife and Drum building, which is where I spent a good bit of my youth. Once it was built, my class was the first one to graduate from it. We had been in the courthouse in 1939 up by the lodge before that. Shared it with some other functions in the foundation, and other functions used the Fife and Drum building as well. Shall we go down there? Yeah, I can get some more steps in. I'll loop around by there. Marks through here. Of course, apples. It's tough, man. Tough. Hard life. I was so lucky. I had no idea. Stand of bamboo over there, an invasive species. Makes a rather dense forest. Asian grass. And some handicap parking over here. A lot of my history is played out in here. Huh. It's got a little path to get through to the, yeah, it does. It goes back over through and behind the house that's in the corner that was known as the tenement. Very thick bamboo. So I would most often park here, if I remember right, before I go in and teach my class. Got a vehicle here. Columbia Williamsburg Clean Tech HGS facility. Space. And horses. Oh, yeah, well, we're having problems with connectivity, apparently. A little bit. Still here or not. And you. I go about it randomly, Bene Wajdi. Good morning. Okay. That was a question for me, I think. Thanks for pointing it out there, bathrobe guy. I'm just random. But there is no real randomness, is my thought. It's it is what it is. I'm documenting things. I'm providing a little bit of who, what, when, and where. Documentation for historians of the future. Everybody produces records. And my father, who I miss greatly and was a historian here, used primary documents to try to put flesh on the bones of this place, say what was and what wasn't. And he left behind a lot. So I'm trying to steward that legacy to some extent, documenting the place that was serving from 1961 till, 2015, I think it was, 15, he got the notification further obliquely that his services were no longer needed as the consulting editor of New Williamsburg. He found out basically by seeing on the masthead that he wasn't there. He pinged about that at a very apologetic note from publications who happened to have been the master of, the assistant music master of the pipe and drum when I joined. But had risen. Performances, wow. I wouldn't have thought it. It's Brody Adams and two youngsters from drum corps, fifer, and a drummer. They must have a job to do. On a Sunday, too. It's just amazing. Maybe we'll track them way back. I was going to go down by the Capitol and around, but don't need to. Over by the gunsmith where I used to work. The question is interesting. I mean, it's a good question. I like the question a lot about how prolific I am on Zach. Why not? Why not be present? Why not share our presence virtually with everybody? Check out this. I mean, as this cruises by, I'm not going to be too sure if we actually did the work on this or not. It doesn't look like it has brass nave bands on the hubs of the wheels. But if it did, it might have been one that my crew had worked on as part of the foundry. Cast little nave bands for them. These have iron ones, so that's not the same. Wheelwrights do the work on those, though. Look at those springs, layered springs. It's a pretty remarkable piece of engineering. Saw the Tigers drum is going off in this direction. They may be going over for a job at the conference center at the end. I'm well behind them now. They'll walk down this way too. Go by the back of the Will Prentice house. My friend who's been at the foundry the longest lived in one of the little houses back here. Buckets and drummers. Probably getting double time for this one. I hope they've changed the pay scale of the fifers and drummers. Pay them all sort of a flat rate. Don't want to get an increase with rank, which I think is a damn shame. But is what it is. So I remember George Carroll, who was the adult leader of the Corps, also lived in this little house. I learned that from a guy who roomed there with him when he was a young fifer, Mark Reamer. That's right. The house itself, the William Prentice house, that was Oh, that's the Prentice shop, it's called. The Cornelian Prentice house there. That was occupied by Wayne Randolph, who painted a very nice portrait of my father, which I intend to give to the Smithsonian. Because Wayne Barrett. Wayne Barrett was a guy who came up with the idea of the Smithsonian Magazine concept. Fifers and drummers are much faster than me. I'm going down to the Brick House Tavern now, printing and bindery across the way. James Anderson House. James Anderson is a public armorer in the Revolution, up towards Richmond, I believe. And the story and a half section of his house, a half section upstairs, the dormers, was one of my father's offices when he was historian for the trade shops, special assistant to the director. And he was then the editor of the Colonial Williamsburg's Journal of Historic Trades, along with Roy Underhill, his co-editor, who had this end of the building at the time. It's like the Anderson shops are getting ready to open. Is it 10 o'clock yet? No, I don't open till 10. It's only 4 minutes until. Oh yeah, Colonial Williamsburg. The Prentice store across the way was a gas station when the restoration started. Been re-bricked a good deal, but some of its original bricks remain. And sturdy little place to last that long. In the 1750s, 60s, on to the present day. It's Colonial Street. Here's down to the end. People like to walk the dogs in town because there are no vehicles. Walked some dogs here myself. Coming up on another one of the private residences. Well, there's the Ledwell Paradise House, first house bought by Rockefeller for starting the foundation's restoration, next to the Red Lion Tavern. And here, this place, oh my gosh, nobody's used that front door in a while, eh? The William Lightfoot House. Must be sitting empty. Yeah, it's got cobwebs on the inside of the windows. Wow, it's weird. Anyhow, that was the home of Phil Thorpe. He was a journeyman silversmith when I was a kid. He had 3 children, and his wife Bobby. His father-in-law was Stan Brown, the stamp man. You know, was big into philately. Bought a lot of my father's Confederate collection. Help him get through college and graduate school. There's the Chinnings Tavern. One of my many relationships started there. Right behind that sign, tankard thing hanging off the wall there. Okay, I haven't lost him completely. Guess they're firing a morning gun. Might as well see that happen. It is time. military encampment. First tune of the ceremonies. Birdie giving me some instructions. Tightening up the snare. It's like, guys, checking out the shed for the fire engine. This one's staking out the place. It is a military encampment. Little one, but nonetheless. All good. Don't know that chap, but it's not really anybody anymore amongst the members of the staff at Colonial Williamsburg. Spinning and Weaving, I think it's moved into this place. It was the home of Stephen Elliott and his son, Stephen Elliott, for that matter. He's one of our fife and drum crew. Steve Elliott was a vice president of the foundation. Across the way, the home of James Getty, silversmith. It's like typing boys up if we grab the ladder. Good morning. Really? All right. Cold drinks available. That's nice. And used to have drinks in the greenhouse store, but I guess they do now. A lumber house is where you can get tickets and information. Oh, I don't have to go over to the visitor center necessarily. I can just stop in here. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for joining if you have. All right. Well, you'll be on my podcast one of these days, Bathrobe Guy. Thanks for joining. Out here.